2B2T. Millions of players have been here, all at the same location. After 16 years of griefing, wars, withers and destruction, it has become one of the most hostile locations in gaming. Every player who has ever joined 2B2T has walked through this chaotic monstrosity, and it shows. Spawn has been chaotic throughout the lifetime of 2B2T, and today we will be looking at the complete evolution of Spawn, from a normal Minecraft world to the wasteland it is today. The spawn of 2B2T, commonly referred to as just Spawn, is where every player on 2B2T first enters the server. Located at the very center of the map, it stretches roughly 4,000 blocks in every direction from 0, Extending out from Spawn are the highways, one of the most important features of 2B2T. These highways stretch for hundreds of thousands of blocks and allow players to travel away from Spawn far more easily. Spawn is often considered the most important location on the server because every player who has ever joined 2B2T has seen it. In many ways, the endless destruction and chaos of Spawn represents the entire atmosphere of 2B2T itself. Spawn is generally divided into two main sections, Inner Spawn and Outer Spawn. Inner Spawn refers to the 2000 by 2000 block area surrounding 0, while Outer Spawn extends roughly 20,000 blocks in every direction beyond it. Spawn wasn't always the wasteland it's known as today. When the server first went online in late 2010, Spawn looked like any normal Minecraft world. Trees, rivers, and grass covered the landscape. However, within just a few days, Spawn was heavily damaged by creeper explosions caused by players from 4chan. At the same time, many of the first lava casts began appearing across the area. Spawn was also incredibly crowded in the early days. Unlike today, where the spawning radius is 2000 by 2000, players originally spawned with only 50 to 100 blocks of spawning from 0. This meant that whenever someone joined the server, they were immediately surrounded by dozens of other players all packed into the same small area. Eventually, the owner of the server Housemaster created a 16 by 16 Obsidian platform at exactly 0 to prevent creepers from blowing large holes in Spawn and killing newly joined players. Within just a few years, Spawn became completely unrecognizable. Lava casts flooded the landscape, and everywhere you looked there was giant cobblestone monsters stretching into the sky. The destruction only intensified when withers were introduced, taking griefing to another level as the player count steadily increased. By this point, Spawn had begun to resemble the iconic images that most people associate with 2B2T today. Landmarks also started to emerge, such as 2K2K, an old face punch base located at -2000 that was used by the face punchers during the face punch vs 4chan war. Around the same period, the first incursion took place. Although it only lasted a week, it marked the beginning of a long history of incursions that would go on to shape Spawn for years to come. Now that 2B2T had a few years behind it, players started to realize they were able to control Spawn itself. Highways were being constructed to help players escape, while people known as Spawn Fags, players who stayed at Spawn to massacre newcomers, began appearing in large numbers. This created an interesting situation where Spawn became both easier and harder to escape. The construction of highways and the expansion of the spawning radius to 2000 by 2000 blocks made it easier for players to get out, but the growing number of Spawn Fags made the journey far more dangerous. Over time, escaping Spawn became a rite of passage. Once a player made it out, they gained access to the rest of the server and its history. Spawn also became a true test of survival, and gradually developed a reputation as one of the most notorious locations not only on 2B2T, but in Minecraft as a whole. Incursions are a key part of 2B2T history and have played a major role in shaping Spawn over the years. An incursion is a community organised event where players unite to invade and control the spawn area for a period of time. Throughout the server's history, there have been 10 incursions, although many players consider the most recent ones to be unofficial or less legitimate. Because of this, only around 6 incursions are generally regarded as true incursions by the wider community. Incursions usually begin when a group of players decide to solve a problem affecting the server, most commonly issues surrounding Spawn itself. During an incursion, players work together to take control of Spawn, enforce their goals, and prevent others from interfering. These events often attract huge amounts of attention and can significantly alter the server's culture and gameplay. A good example is the fourth incursion, one of the most significant events in 2B2T history. It was started by Jared 2013 during the height of the Russia War and lasted for several weeks. The incursion's goal was to stop the influx of new players arriving from the Camping Russia's videos by making Spawn as difficult to escape as possible. This event was particularly important because it helped accelerate the shift from traditional sword PvP to crystal PvP, forever changing the way combat on 2B2T was fought. A large part of Spawn's history is the mega projects that players have created over the years. One of the most famous examples is the Water Cube, a massive structure that has become a permanent symbol of 2B2T Spawn. The original Water Cube was constructed shortly after the Russia War and was designed to make escaping Spawn significantly harder for new players. However, in late 2016, the Make Spawn Try Again movement began, led by Jared 2013, with players working together to drain much of the original Water Cube using thousands of sponges. The Water Cube wasn't the only large-scale project to shape Spawn. Over the years, many different versions have been created, destroyed, and rebuilt, constantly changing the landscape around 0.0. Other mega projects focused on helping new players rather than trapping them. Numerous farms were built several thousand blocks away from Spawn to provide food and resources for players attempting to escape. One of the most unique projects ever completed at Spawn was the creation of the Void Chunk. Players managed to break the bedrock at 0.0, creating a chunk where the void was exposed directly beneath the worlds. The project required an enormous amount of effort and became one of the most iconic engineering achievements in 2B2T history, proving that even in the most destroyed area of the server, players were still finding new ways to leave their mark. Spawn has had many monuments throughout its history, some much more interesting and influential than others. One of the earliest examples was the Valley of Furnaces, located a few thousand blocks away from Spawn. The area consisted of thousands of furnaces spread across the landscape and became one of the most recognizable landmarks near Spawn. Although documentation about the area is fairly limited, the Valley of Furnaces remains well known within the community. Over time, the landmark eventually evolved into what became known as the Valley of Ender Chests, continuing the tradition of large-scale, player-made monuments around Spawn. Another famous example is 2K2K, one of the most notable monuments in Spawn's history. Constructed in July 2012 at -2000/2000, it served as the main base of the Facepunch Republic during the Facepunch vs 4chan war. 2K2K held significant importance to the Facepunchers, as it was where many of their members lived, farmed resources, and coordinated during the conflict. Because of its role in one of the earliest major wars on the server, 2K2K became a symbol of an era of 2B2T history. By around 2017, players began building at an unprecedented scale using Obsidian. Massive structures, stretching thousands of blocks in every direction, started appearing around Spawn, permanently altering the landscape. Obsidian was the perfect material for these projects because it is extremely difficult to destroy, allowing builders to create obstacles that could remain for years. However, obtaining the enormous quantities required was no easy task. Since most obsidian came from ender chests, gathering enough resources for these projects required a huge investment of both time and money. Some of the most ambitious Spawn projects ever created were built from obsidian. A prime example is the Obsidian Roof, a massive structure that covered more than 4.2 million blocks of Spawn. Projects on this scale demonstrate the dedication of 2B2T's players, who were willing to spend countless hours gathering resources and building structures that could reshape Spawn for years to come. Nowadays, Spawn is dominated by massive player-made projects, such as the iconic Water Cube, which stretches roughly 750 blocks in every direction from 0.0, Lava casts continue to plague the landscape for thousands of blocks beyond spawn, just as they have for many years, while trees are almost impossible to find within 5,000 blocks of the center of the worlds. Despite over a decade of destruction, players are still constantly reshaping the area through new projects and constructions. In recent years, some of the largest Obsidian structures in 2B2T history have been built at spawn. One of the most impressive examples is the Devs logo, a gigantic structure made from more than 2 billion Obsidian blocks. Projects on this scale show that even after 16 years, players are still finding new ways to leave their mark on spawn. While the area may be almost unrecognizable from its natural beginnings, it continues to evolve every year as new players arrive and old players attempt to reshape it. Looking towards the future, spawn will almost certainly continue to evolve. New lava casts will be built, highways will be extended even further, and we may see entirely new obsidian megastructures reshape the landscape once again. Spawn could become harder for new players to escape, or future projects and changes could make the journey easier. Housemaster may choose to alter spawn through updates and server changes, or he may leave it entirely in the hands of the community. Whatever happens, one thing is certain: spawn will never remain the same for long.